Hello again. It's nice to see you. Welcome back to another Czech day trip with me, Paul Colto. I hope you have a glass of wine in your hand. You're feeling nice and relaxed. I'd like to thank the people who left more positive comments under the last video. Again, you inspired me to continue with this series. So thank you very, very much. If you have any trip recommendations, corrections of mistakes I might make in this video, additional information of any of the places we might visit, or your experience of any of the places we might visit, please let me know in the comments. On today's trip, we'll be visiting an early medieval settlement, a castle that dates back to the year 1228, and a brewery that was most probably built in the year 1710. But our trip starts on a train out of Prague towards the city of Kralupy nad Vltavou. It's 25 kilometers north of Prague, 20 minutes on the train, and is home to 18,000 people. In-flight entertainment on the train, which is a double-decker, which always fills me with boyish exuberance and excitement. A brief view of the town from a small hillock as we head out of the town slowly but surely, with a couple of elderly gentlemen on bicycles, and then that magic moment of leaving the main road or thoroughfare and disappearing down into little villages, forests and countryside. The last time I did this trip, and I've done it a few times, the path was mainly like mud, but I was pleased to see that a lot of that path has now been paved with a nice, tasteful path such as this for both cyclists and walkers. Arriving in the village of Zakolani, a strange sculpture was on top of an old building. It was very phallic, but somehow important. A gentleman was delivering beer to the pub in the village, which is called Ulebuše, and though I didn't visit, I'm well informed and advised that it's a fantastic pub with a great garden, menu and beer. Having hiked 6 kilometers, I decided to stop here in the center of Zakolani, have a look around, and I could see that 2 of my destinations were literally being pointed. My half-empty flask of coffee was reopened and enjoyed with a typical Czech snack. This was a brief moment of sunshine, and sadly for the rest of the day, the weather was overcast with light rain. A beautiful, beautiful meadow. And next to it, another meadow, this time with beehives. On climbing my way up and out of Zakolani, you arrive in Budec and the church of St. Peter and Paul, which was built in the 9th or 10th century, making it 11 centuries old. The church, which you'll see in a moment, has an accompanying graveyard which is beautifully kept, and the graves are covered in flowers and candles, and really create a very, very peaceful atmosphere. Indeed, this small area of the church, the graveyard, the neighbouring meadows, it really has a very, very calming, reflective atmosphere just on top of a hill. And I noticed that a small building had been built right next to the graveyard that you'll see in a moment. I peeked in the window here and saw a table and chairs and a fridge, and outside these picnic tables, and I couldn't decide if it was a cafe or a cottage. But I noticed that here by the fireplace that has wood ready for the next fire, I couldn't help but thinking that that would be a cricket pitch in the distance if it was in the UK. There's also an altar that reminded me of a certain scene from the book The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and a lookout point with a bench, of course, for young lovers, and a view that, though partially obstructed by trees, still offers a glimpse of the hills in the distance. I was now headed for Okor's castle. And the journey was through some beautiful fields. A father and his son cycling, and a huge viaduct just before you enter the village of Okor. A stunning garden, and a little bridge suitable for hikers, cyclists and turtles. Okor, the village, hosts an annual summer festival, and surrounding the castle that you will see shortly are those typical, beautiful, magical Czech cottages. And you're about to get your first glimpse of the castle as we arrive from the rear. It really is an imposing sight. Really plays with your imagination as you try to imagine the castle in its original state and the lives that were lived here and the battles that were doubtless fought here. Midday, lunchtime, only one sandwich because I'll probably be eating something else a little bit later on from a restaurant or brewery. Two gentlemen were tossing a frisbee as God intended. Cyclists meandered through the village, and it was now time to make my way towards my final destination, which is the brewery in the village of Unetice. This section of the hike, about 9 kilometers, was mostly through fields. I saw a cargo train pass through in front of a large pile of manure. And from effluence to affluence, the village of Unetice, which is home to lots of very expensive looking new apartments and houses, and a very scenic restaurant that sits atop a small lake in the centre of the village. I think the rain is the reason the terrace was virtually empty, and also it was lunchtime on a Wednesday, so there really should have been some people there. But anyway, we're now starting to get close to Unetice. You can see the rain was starting to fall, but my spirits weren't dampened as I saw this sign for the brewery. Dear viewer, what do you think has been mined here? I think it's slate, but I'm happy and excited to be corrected as we arrive into the village of Unetice and the brewery. Unetický pivovar and its beer, Unetice, is a very popular beer in Prague and some of the surrounding towns. The brewery had a big renovation less than a decade ago, and they specialize, like most breweries, in two types of beer: a 10-degree beer and a 12-degree beer. Mostly men here today on a Wednesday lunchtime. But for those unfamiliar with the beer classification system, the 10-degree beer is described by the brewery themselves as an all-night get-together beer. So it's slightly weaker, but really fantastic, the 10-degree. And the 12-degree, a little bit stronger, with a fuller taste and a creamier, foamy head. I started with the 10-degree beer, which is one of my favourite Czech beers, especially my favourite Czech 10-degree beer. The rings are there, although not necessarily so visible on this style of glass. And I quickly tried the 12-degree beer afterwards, and you'll see how foamy and creamy the head is right now. Empty on a Wednesday lunchtime, but packed on a Saturday and Sunday. This brewery is a very popular day trip from Prague on the weekend. Of course, a souvenir was absolutely necessary, and I took a bottle of my favorite Unetické pivo, 10 degrees. Some prizes the brewery has won. And as I left, the rain was still coming down. But my next port of call was a short walk for Paul, as Unetice also houses, or is home to, one of the best pubs in the villages surrounding Prague. It's called Ulasiku. It has become very popular in recent years. But arriving as I did on a Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock in the rain, I was one of only 2 patrons there. And this really is a pub as God would imagine himself. Homemade cakes and soup is what the sign says outside. And inside there's more seating. Photograph of Václav Havel, and just look at the homemade cakes that they make every day. Of course, they serve Unetice beer, and on my visit I tried the 8 degree, an unfiltered cyclist's special. It's quite a weak beer, but full of ale-y goodness. I sat down to enjoy this piece of food, which I couldn't decide whether it was a quiche or a flan. If you know the difference, please let me know in the comments. I bid farewell to this pub, which is also very popular, as I said. And for the final part of the trip, I walked down Tiche Údolí, which means Silent Valley. A short 3 or 4 kilometer trip back to the train station. And it really was a silent valley today. Just me, 3 slugs, although I didn't see any of these snakes. And this is a typical shot of Silent Valley, where the path runs right next to this beautiful, calming stream. Stream in Czech is potok. A little stream, potůček. Now, arriving into Roztoky u Prahy, I was desperate to show you this pub, which has rabbits, but unfortunately they were closed. Finally arriving in Roztoky u Prahy, from where there is a 10-minute train back to Prague, Masarykovo nádraží train station. A great cafe which you should visit if you're in Roztoky. Some books to help yourself to, and a train arriving with an incomprehensible amount of Audi cars on it. Destined for Germany, perhaps. I boarded the train, took my seat, and headed back to Prague. I really hope you enjoyed this video of Budec, Okor Castle, and the Unetice Brewery. Please like and subscribe and share this video on social media. If you have any comments, questions or recommendations, please leave them in the comments. But for now, from me, happy tripping and toot toot.